Recognizing, Reporting, and Preventing Child Abuse, brought to you by the State of Nevada Division of Child and Family Services, in cooperation with the Nevada Institute for Children's Research and Policy at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and Prevent Child Abuse, Nevada. Nobody likes to think that child abuse and child neglect are happening in their communities. Unfortunately, it is, and we need your help to identify it. This short video will tell you what you need to know about reporting a suspicion of child abuse or neglect, such as recognizing it, knowing who to call to report it, knowing what you might be asked, and what you can do to help prevent child abuse and neglect in our community. In Nevada, we differentiate between the following 4 subtypes of abuse and neglect: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. We define abuse as the willful action of a caregiver that results in the non-accidental injury of a child. We define neglect as the failing to provide proper care, supervision, and basic needs of a child through the inaction, habits, or faults of the caregiver. Deciding to make a report isn't easy. Know that you are protected by the good faith law, and therefore, as long as you are acting in good faith, cannot be sued. By making a report, you are only alerting child welfare professionals to a possible concern, and you can remain anonymous. Just remember, when in doubt, call it out. Sometimes it's difficult to know if a child has been or is being abused or neglected. However, there are often caregiver warning signs that might alert you to a concern of abuse or neglect. Be alert to caregivers who abuse alcohol or other drugs, are violent toward a spouse or pets, see the child as worthless or as a burden, frequently blame, belittle, or insult the child, act secretive or try to isolate the child from others, use harsh physical discipline or ask other caretakers to use such, believe children like sexual relationships, or show extreme preference for one child or another. Please remember, these are only signs of a possible problem. The way a child behaves can also be an indicator that abuse or neglect is occurring. If you observe a child expressing thoughts of suicide, running away, hoarding or stealing, is extremely fearful of going home, that talks about being abused or neglected, is overly sexual for his or her age, is underweight when there is no medical reason, seems developmentally delayed when medical reasons aren't present, or is left home alone for a long time, or is left home when the child is too young to care for him or herself. Again, just because a child behaves in one of these ways doesn't necessarily mean they are being abused or neglected. Let's face it, children incur injuries throughout the normal course of childhood. However, it is important to be aware when suspicious injuries arise. If you are wondering if an injury may be the result of abuse, consider the following warning signs. Where is the injury? Injuries in normally protected areas of the body, such as the face, buttocks, back of thighs, ears, bottoms of the feet, and genitals, are a concern. How severe is the injury? Injuries that cover an extensive portion of the child's buttocks and lower back, or injuries in multiple stages of healing, are of significant concern. And finally, injuries with a pattern or with clearly defined edges suggest that a child might have been hit with an object. Child abuse and neglect not only impact a child at the time they are occurring, but can potentially have long-term effects if not effectively resolved. These consequences may include death, mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder and/or anxiety disorders, criminal involvement, drug and alcohol abuse, sexual anxiety and disorders, depression and thoughts of suicide, poor body image, and low self-esteem. Child abuse and neglect are serious concerns in our community, so if you have a suspicion, when should you report? As soon as possible. And remember, a request for investigation is not an accusation. There is no need to have absolute proof of abuse, just a reasonable suspicion. and that additional reports need to be made if additional incidents occur. There are several different ways to make a report: by phone to your local child welfare agency, or to the Child Help USA National Child Abuse Hotline, or to any law enforcement agency. When you call to make a report, the person taking your call will guide you through a series of questions. You may not know the answer to some or many of the questions. Just tell them what you know. We will go through some of the questions together so you'll be a bit familiar with the types of questions that will be asked of you. It will be necessary for the person taking your call to understand why you suspect that child abuse or neglect has occurred. Your explanation can help the agency determine the seriousness and urgency of the situation. It might sound like this. A 9-year-old child told me that she is often left alone all night and is expected to get herself off to school the next morning while her mother is working. She also told me that she only eats while she is at school. I worry what may happen while she is alone and Mom is not at home. Or perhaps like this. The child came over to play with my son today, and I noticed he had some bruising on his face, upper arms, and upper back. When I asked about the bruises, he said that he fell, but these didn't look like the kind of bruises you would get from a fall or through normal roughhousing. You will further be asked to describe everything else you know about the suspected abuse or neglect, such as what might have led up to the incident, what else was happening at the time of the incident, and what happened next. A caller's response might sound something like this example. The parents were both drinking all day and had an argument. The 5-year-old son got between the dad and Mom, and Dad pushed him out of the way when he was trying to hit Mom. Or like this. I saw the 3-year-old boy walking down the road alone. I didn't see any adult or older child with him. I don't know who he is or where he lives. It is important that the person receiving your call understand as much as possible about the child of concern. Here is how you, a caller, might respond to this question. The child appears to be doing everything that other kids their age do physically, but she is really aggressive and hits the other children in the neighborhood. Also, I can't understand her when she talks, so she just points and screams when she needs something. Or perhaps simply, the child is 3 years old and not walking. I don't know why. You, the caller, will also be asked to share everything you know about how the child's adult caregivers act and behave. These questions might include, how do the adults in the family function personally and presently in their everyday lives? Manage their life and their social relationships? Meet their needs? Problem solve? Relate to others? What is their intellectual functioning? Do they act in ways that make you wonder if they have any mental health or substance use or abuse concerns? Can you describe their mental health? Do they seem rational? Do they have self-control? Are they in touch with reality? Are they coherent? What do you know about their employment experiences, criminal history, previous relationships? You will also be asked questions about how the child's caregivers parent. These are some of the questions you would likely be asked. What are the caregivers' parenting styles? Where did they learn those parenting styles? What are their expectations of the child? Are they providing for the child's basic needs, such as food, clothing, shelter? How do they communicate with the child? What is their knowledge and expectations related to child development and parenting? Why did they have children? What is their feeling about being a parent? What are some examples of their parenting styles and parenting experiences? Finally, you will also be asked about how the child's caregivers discipline the child. Questions such as, what are the parents' methods of discipline? What is the source of those methods? The purpose or reasons for those practices? The attitudes about, context of, expectations of, and understanding of discipline. A response to these questions might resemble this. Mom said she parents just like her mom did. Spare the rod and spoil the child. You have to beat the devil out of him or he won't be worth anything. Or, the child's mother told me, I didn't need discipline when I was a kid and I turned out okay, so will my kids. This is a summary of the types of information you would be asked if you called in to report a suspicion of child abuse or neglect. Each call will be a little different, but most will follow this outline. Finally, you will now see a video that demonstrates a report being called into the hotline. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this informational presentation on how together we as a community can help stop child abuse and neglect.
Hello, this is Tom with the Division of Child and Family Services. How can I help you today? Do you have a report of child abuse or neglect to make?
Yes, I do. It's probably nothing, but I felt like I should tell someone. This call's confidential, right? I don't want any trouble with the neighbors.
Yes, your call does remain confidential. Please tell me about your concern. What are you seeing that makes you believe a child is being abused or neglected?
Well, it's a little girl across the street. I think her mother's leaving her home alone at night. And I don't know, she might be on drugs or something.
Okay. I need to start by gathering some basic information. What is the child's first and last name?
It's Jenna Smith.
Okay, and her mother's first and last name?
Anna, I think it's Ann Smith.
And the family's home address?
1272 Maple Drive.
Do you know the child's date of birth?
Oh, I don't. I think she's my daughter's age, about 5.
Are there any other people living in the home that you are aware of?
I haven't seen anybody else.
By any chance, do you have the family's home phone number?
No, sorry, I don't.
So you said that the child has been left alone. Could you please tell me a little bit more about what you observed?
A couple of things. Jenna was playing with my daughter in the backyard, and I overheard them talking, and it sounds like Jenna was saying that she woke up in the middle of the night and their mom wasn't there.
I was scared last night. Were you scared? No. Why were you? Because I woke up from a nightmare, and I could not find my mom. And I cried, but my mom would not come. Where was she? I don't know.
Jenna, honey, did your mom tell you she was leaving?
I tried to ask her a couple of questions, and she just said she couldn't talk about it and ran off.
I can't talk about